So while uploading the previous video to YouTube, let's carry on with leave current room function. Let's also transfer to the from the client side to the server side. Ah, let's delete the Redis client. This thing. Okay, so let's go in here and specify an endpoint for that. Uh, with let's make it also post matchmaking with current room. Let's create a endpoint for that. Let's leave current room. Let's pass a context pointer, chin context. Then let's put the body in here. Sorry, what? Leave current room. Let's take this body, paste it. Leave current room. So in here, let's get the current room ID. Let's not spend a lot of time on redefining the same things. Let's take the client room ID. It's client room ID. Do we need current? What else do we need? We need client ID. Okay, we have it. Client name. I just deleted that. RPC address also needed. Okay, let's take specify a client name also. Client name. So we're binding the pass body to the request date. We can do this thing actually. Client. Let's make it lowercase. Others. Let's specify client room ID. Where is this client room ID? Current room ID. Current room IDs and just so for the sake of simplicity, let's parse all these values, all these properties into separate variables. For all this part, you can say request data, current room ID, current room ID. Let's do the same thing for the others. Idea. What's the problem? What's the problem with that? Non-types. Current idea. Is integer. So let's make the room ID. It's better to keep it as current room ID. Alright, so we're done with this part. So we're passing the current room ID, the ID, client name, and the RPC address. So the only thing left is to just add an appropriate operation for returning response responses. So let's return as JSON the status bad request. Current room. So let's say you're not joined in any room. Any room here, here, here. So current part. Or client is not in the room. That's more general. So what we're doing here, we're just checking whether the current room ID is -1 or not. If the current room ID is -1, that literally means that our client is not connected to any room, so he's just in the lobby. So in this way, in this case, we're just returning a message saying that the client is not in any room, and we're returning an error with the status bad request. So we should do the same thing for this part as well. So if sure to reset. So in this part, what's we don't need the percentages. So in this case, we check whether actually our the room key exists or not. If the room key is 0, we're just setting back the current room ID back to -1. We're checking just whether the room exists or not. If it doesn't exist, we just set it back to -1. Mm, or I'm just confusing something. Yes, yes. So if our room does not exist in the server, we just double checking. We're just making sure that the current room ID is -1 to make sure that the client side make sure that the current room that's actually a little bit messy. We don't need that in here. Don't need to set it to anything. That setup will be important on the client side and on the server side. Let's do the same thing for that part. Return the same thing for that part as well. Docker file. And then we just return reset current. Also don't need that. Don't need that. And here we just return JSON. We just say that you managed to leave the room. Here just specify gen h message left client left the room successfully. Let's pass the room ID. Room ID. Yes. So we transferred the leave current room feature from the client side to the backend side, to the server side. So now what's left is to implement this leave current room thing. So in this leave current room, we should just pass this, right? Should pass the client ID that's passed as a property. We should pass the RPC and RPC address and the client name, the client ID to the current room ID. Okay. So in here, where let's just use a boilerplate code. So let's take our request part, Marshall, error checking and post and this. Let's take the whole thing. Let's take the whole thing. Right. So let's take this body, put into the payload. To the payload, let's assign each one of those parameters properly. Current room ID. Let's make sure we're pointing at the proper one. Yes. And we're assigning the client ID also. Let's make sure, yes, it's also proper. This part. So the client ID that we're assigning to client ID is the client ID passed as an argument to the leave current room function. And we're passing the client name that's a global variable. So the RPC address, that's also from the parameter list. So then we're marshalling the payload into the list of bytes, which is data. So then we're making a post request by passing the data to the function bytes new buffer to create a buffer IO reader. So we check the error, we defer the body close, we check whether status is accepted. If the status is accepted, it is 200, which is now status, that should be status okay. That should be status okay. We get our message in room ID. That should be room ID. We read the bytes from the body. Read the bytes from the body. Return a list of bytes, which is body. Then we're just marshalling the body into the rest body. Then we're returning the nil. So noting that there is not any error. So another thing. So in case during the response body read, if something happened, if okay, so in this part we're setting our client current room ID to -1. So here, if any error happens in the process of the request handling, if it's stopped in the at this part or in the other places where we're handling our errors, just gonna remember I just got rid of the client room current room ID assigning to -1 from the function. So yes, so here we're just setting it back to -1 to make sure that the client side is consistent. Otherwise, we can just uh, have our current room ID be assigned to some other value that'll note that our client is connected to some other room while he'll be just swinging on the server side of the lobby. So yes, so this is okay. Okay, so let me go through it. With current room, that should be fine. So there are some errors on the side. What Redis? Yeah, we don't need the Redis though. So let me check whether there are some other functions and implemented. So RPC is message is another thing. Term Redis. No. So we're not using Redis anymore on the client side. So we've managed to fully transfer the Redis handling to the server side. So now the client side is pretty much secure. You can basically make matchmaking requests, any of them. The server side has some security layers, maybe to the server side, and make sure that your requests will be handled on the server side. But still, the client, the local client, is still here that uses Redis, RDB. So this local client has the matchmaking system handled on its code base, but it's using challenge mechanism that I've implemented. But as I said, so the challenge mechanism is not that much secure. I mean, the idea was to just implement a kind of a snapshot of the local client, but again, the local client can be easily reverse engineered. The parts can be modified. The initial snapshot can be validated by the server, and then the the client's code can be compromised by damaging the server side. So it's better to have your matchmaking on the server side while having it on the client side would be much more beneficial in terms of server load. This way you can just handle all your matchmaking on your local machine. And but in the case of having the matchmaking on the server side, like all users' requests regarding room handling, room joining, whatever, will be handled by the server itself. But the thing is that where we have such a nice matching combination between Redis and Golang, and Redis, I mean, it's a lightweight database in caching, and shouldn't the load will not be actually filling. So that's the coolest part. So I'll make commits to the GitHub repository of PulseCore. And we'll let you know and upload that video as well on YouTube, so you can go through it, take a look, understand just how functions work, how we just transferred the client base to the server space to the server base, so on. So thank you for your attention.